everybody, and welcome back to Kardec Radio for Teens. For those of you who might not know, Kardec Radio for Teens is a place where teens can come together with other teens to learn about Spiritist teachings and topics in a way that makes more sense to us and is more relatable to us as teenagers in today's society. For over 2 years now, we've been going through the Spirits book together, page by page, question by question, to make sure that we're understanding at least a basic principle of what is Spiritism. And then off of that, we will learn off of that and grow off of that. So it's not that we're gonna learn everything right now just reading this one time through together, but it's sort of setting a basis so that we have some basic knowledge that we can read the book again or read a different book and grow off of that knowledge that we already have. And the Spirits book is one of those books that you can't just read one time and understand everything. There's going to be some things that you're more confused on, or some things that you get. You're like, okay, yeah, that makes total sense. And some things you're like, wait, that doesn't make sense. So we do need to, in our lifetimes, in the adults that we see that practice Spiritism, most of them, they read the Spirits book again and again. They read books again and again, and each time they learn more. So it's not that we're expected that we're going to know everything. So if you guys have questions, feel free to email me at kardecradioforteens@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you right away because there is a lot of questions that we're going to have and a lot of things still to learn. Just because we read it one time through doesn't mean we know everything, but it's setting a good basis for us to learn off of. So last week we were in the chapter about moral perfection. So not only talking about getting better intellectually, but our morals, which is a really important part. And so we finished off last week talking about selfishness, and now we're moving on to the next section, which is titled Characteristics of a Virtuous Person. So now we're going to see what are the characteristics that make people virtuous, that make them have a lot of these, like we talked, the virtues are those good qualities, and the vices are those the negative ones, the bad ones. So what makes a person have all the good qualities, have the virtues? Question 918. Are there signs indicating that humans have achieved the progress that will raise them in the spirit hierarchy? So here they're saying, so is there a sign that when you look at someone, or the spirits are looking at a incarnated spirit, and they say, that person, they can see from the signs of that person is elevated, is moving up in the spirit hierarchy, on the ladder to perfection, as we talk about. So are there signs that we can see, like, oh, okay, that person is evolving, that person is moving up? And the spirits answered, the elevation of incarnated spirits is demonstrated by the compliance of all their actions in the physical life with God's law, and by their understanding of spiritual life. So when spirits are looking, say like the spirits that are disincarnated, so in the spirit world, are looking at us that are incarnated on earth, they can tell who is more evolved by seeing how we act and how we are encountering God's laws and using God's laws and understanding spiritual life. And that's how they can tell who is more evolved than others. So it's not just, oh, that person's reading that book, that's a good thing. No, we have to also be doing that, be actively putting these virtues to good use and putting them to use. And we have to be doing it with good intentions, because we know that if the spirits will know if we're just doing it so that we seem good. But we need to be truly having these good virtues and practicing these good virtues because we want to, because we know that's the right thing to do. So the more evolved we are, the more that we're just practicing God's laws in our everyday lives, and the more we're understanding spiritual life. So it's all about learning and putting what we're learning into practice. And then Allan Kardec puts his own comment in, and he says, truly virtuous individuals are those who practice the law of justice, love, and charity in their purest form. If people question their conscience in regards to their actions, they will ask themselves whether they have violated the laws or done anything wrong, whether they have done all the right in their power, whether no one has reason to complain about them, and whether they have done to others everything that they would wish others to do to them. So here he's breaking it down more of what these truly virtuous people are. And they're the ones that are practicing the law of justice, love, and charity in the purest form. So like we said, so we can be doing that, but then kind of thinking about ourselves as well. But those ones who are truly just thinking of justice, love, and charity in the purest form, just trying to give back to others and not receive anything for themselves, they're amongst those truly virtuous individuals. And it also says, people who are asking themselves, who are aware, oh, am I doing something wrong? Am I doing something right? Should I have done this instead? So they're being self-conscious, and they know that they've done all the good in their power. That they didn't just do, oh, this is good enough. No, they're doing all the good in their power. And that no one's going to have reason to complain about them. So they're working hard to do all these right things to make everyone happy, so no one has a right to complain about them. And here it says, whether they've done to others everything they would have done to them, they would have want done to themselves. So not just saying, oh, I know I would want this done to me, so I'm going to do one thing, but doing everything that you would want someone else to do to you, do it to that other person. And then they continue. When people are overwhelmed by feelings of charity and kindness for all, they do good for the sake of doing good, without looking for a reward, and they sacrifice their interests for justice. So these are people that they're doing tons of good just because they want to do good, not for a reward, not for a prize, not to be honored. They're just doing good because they want to help, they want to do good. And even if it's something that they're not interested in personally, they're still going to go and do that good thing. Maybe it's helping with cooking, and they don't like cooking, but they're still doing it with no complaints because they know that it's about helping other people and not about their own interests. They are kind, compassionate, and humane to all because they view everyone as their brothers and sisters, regardless of race or creed. So also, people who are truly virtuous, they aren't discriminating different types of people. So it's not, oh, I'm being really good, but only to this certain type of group that I'm a part of or that I like. No, they're being good and helping people of all different types. So it's not just personal like, oh, I'm in this religion, so I want to be good to only these people. Or even self-consciously, just being good to the people around you instead of being good to everyone and helping everyone. So they're not only being compassionate and humane to one type of people, but to everyone. Because in the end, they know that everyone is a brother and sister. If God has given them power and wealth, they consider them deposit, confident to them for the general good. They are not arrogant because they know what God has given, God can take away. So, if they do have power and wealth, if they have money, they know to help the general good, and they know to make good use of it because God can take away what the privilege that He gave us to have this power and wealth. And maybe God gave them power and wealth so that they could go out and help others and not worry about a job. But we need to make sure that we're not taking advantage of that, because or else God can easily take that away as well. When society makes people depend on them, they treat them with kindness and compassion as equals before God. They use authority to elevate them morally, rather than crushing them with their pride. So if people do need their help and people do depend on them, then they treat them with kindness. They don't say, oh, you need my help, so I'm above you. No, they use that to elevate them morally so that they can help that person more. But they're not saying, oh, why do you need help with that? Oh, that's so easy. They're not showing off themselves. They're treating that person as an equal to them. Even if they might be better off than that person, they treat them as an equal. They are indulgent to relations to others' weaknesses, knowing that they too need indulgence, and remembering Christ's words, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." So they're not judging other people's problems. If they're helping all these people, they're not going to judging other people's weaknesses, because everyone has their weaknesses. And like Jesus said, he said, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." And no one's going to throw that stone, because everyone has that sin. Everyone has a weakness. We're not at that state of perfection yet, so we all have it within us. So they're not blaming people for having their own weaknesses. They're just truly helping them, and they know that they have their own as well. They are not vindictive and follow the example of Jesus, forgiving all offenses, as they know that they will only obtain forgiveness as they forgive others and themselves. So when something does happen against them, they forgive that person. They follow Jesus' lead, and they forgive all these offenses, because they know that if they did something wrong, they would want to be forgiven. And they will do something wrong, because just because they're getting more involved in the virtues, they're still people. They're still making mistakes. Finally, they respect the rights of others, as established by the law of nature, as they would want others to respect their rights. So they respect the rights of all individuals. So no one has more rights than other people, no matter gender, race, anything of that. So they're respecting all people, because all people are equal in their rights, and we want to be treated with our full rights, and we want our rights respected. So we need to respect other people's rights as well. So that is all that they said that sums up kind of the characteristics of a virtuous person. And there's a lot in there. There's a lot to do for us to reach that state. But we should start at all those things little by little, and then we'll keep working and growing on all those things. Now we're on to the next section, which is titled Self-Knowledge, still talking about moral perfection. Question 919. What is the most effective method for guaranteeing self-improvement and resisting the attraction of wrongdoing? So now it's saying, okay, we want to improve. How do we improve? What's the best way for us to improve? And the spirits answered, a philosopher of antiquity once said, know thyself. So one of the best ways for us to improve ourselves and to resist doing wrong things is to know yourself. And then there's a second part to this question, and it says, we fully admit the wisdom of this saying, but self-knowledge is precisely what is most difficult to achieve. How can we acquire it? So, okay, we know the saying, know thyself, and we know that, we can admit to that, but we don't know how to actually put that into use. So how can we acquire this self-knowledge? And the spirits answered, do what I myself used to do during my life on earth. At the end of each day, I would assess my consequences, review everything that I had done, and I would ask myself whether I had failed in some duty, whether someone might have reason to complain about me. It was thus that I arrived at knowing myself, and in seeing what there was in me that needed to be reformed. If you review all your actions of the day, every day, asking yourself whether you have done good or bad, and even praying for enlightenment from God and your guardian angel, you would acquire great strength for self-improvement, because God would assist you. Ask yourself these questions. What you have done, what was your aim, whether you have done anything that you would find faults for in another, or whether you have done anything that would be ashamed to admit. Also, ask yourself, if God called me into the spirit life at this moment in time, where nothing is hidden, would I dread seeing anyone? Review what you may have done, first against God, second against your neighbor, and lastly against yourself. The answer to these questions will either settle your conscience or reveal some wrong that you will have to remedy. So here they really gave a great way for us to acquire self-knowledge and for to know how to know yourself, the self-knowledge. So here the spirit, who is St. Augustine, is telling us that to do what he did during his life on earth. So that's also encouraging that it's not just from a spirit's point of view, but also from being incarnated on earth. And every day we have to assess ourselves. We have to see, okay, what did I do today that was good? What did I do today that was bad? What do I have to fix? What can I improve on? And we have to review ourselves and review our days and ask, okay, if everyone could see what my life was completely, would I be embarrassed? Would I be proud? So we have to review our things, review ourselves. So maybe before you sleep, just review your day and think, okay, what did I do wrong that I should fix? What did I do good? What was a good thing that I did that I can keep doing and improve on? And with that, we can also ask our guardian angel and God for help and assistance so that they can guide us in fixing these things that we see that we might have done that are wrong. So if we take this time to assess ourselves and to judge ourselves, kind of like we all judge people on a daily basis, if instead we judge ourselves, we'll learn a lot about ourselves and we'll be self-aware. We'll know who we are, what we need to fix, what are our good qualities, what are our bad qualities, and all of that. So taking a few moments to reflect on ourselves and then acting upon that is a great way for us to become self-aware and to know ourselves. And then St. Augustine continues, self-knowledge is the key to individual improvement. However, you may ask, how does one judge oneself? Aren't all human beings subject to the illusions of arrogance, which diminish their flaws in their own eyes and make it possible to find excuses for them? Misers think that they are merely practicing economy and foresight, while proud individuals think their pride is dignity. This is true, but there is a way of proceeding that you cannot deceive you. When you are in doubt regarding any of your actions, ask yourself what your judgment would be if it were done by another. If you would find cause for reproach in another, it cannot be less reprehensible when done by you, because God's justice is universal for all. Try to discover what others think, and do not overlook the opinion of your enemies, because they have no interest in disguising the truth, and God often places them in your life to serve as a mirror to warn you in a manner more frank than that of a friend. Those who are firmly resolved in achieving self-improvement must review their conscience in order to uproot their evil inclinations, just as they uproot weeds from their gardens. Every night they should settle their moral accounts for the day, just as businessmen accounts for their profit and losses. They can rest assured that the former will be a much more profitable operation than the latter. Those who can say that the balance is in their favor may sleep peacefully and await their return to the spirit life without fear. So here they're saying, so how can we reflect on ourselves if sometimes I think, oh, I'm not being proud and prideful right now. I'm just having dignity and sticking up for myself. So sometimes you may be confused on what is good though. Is this good or is this wrong? I don't know. So then you can think, what if someone else did that? Not even like, oh, what if my friend did that? Think about what if your enemy did that? What if someone you don't like did that? How would you feel? Would you judge them for doing that? So then we think of that. If someone else was doing that, how would we react? And then we can see, because a lot of the times for us, it's easier to see what someone else is doing wrong than to see ourselves. So if we imagine someone else doing it, we can see what we would think is wrong or right in those situations. And also, another really interesting point that he put in here was to try and discover what your enemies are thinking and where they're coming from, things like that. Like if someone is saying something to you and you and that person do not get along, but they're saying these things about you, think about why are they saying those things, because sometimes that's a way for us to improve ourselves, and maybe our friend wouldn't say something horrible to us, but maybe that person did, and said, not that we have to admit it to that person, but say, you know what, you're right, let me fix on that thing and let me improve myself so no one has a reason to say that to me. So we can also grow off these people that might seem like they're pushing us, it might seem that it's hurting us, we can really improve and learn from that as well. So they're saying here, so take a few minutes before you sleep, before your night, to look at the day and see what went right, what went wrong, and balance, and see the balance. Just like businessmen do with their accounts. They look at their losses and they look at their profits. So at the end of the night, look at your losses and look at your profits and assess what we need to do for the next day. And then St. Augustine continues, ask yourself clear and precise questions, and do not hesitate to ask them often. You should devote a few minutes to guaranteeing happiness that will last forever. Do you not work every day so that you may rest when you have reached old age? Is this rest not the object of your desires, the aim that helps you endure your current hard workship and deprivation? What comparison is there between a few days of rest impaired by the weakness of the body and the endless rest that awaits the virtuous? Is the latter not worth a slight effort? I know that many will say, the present is certain, the future is uncertain. But this is precisely the error that we must erase from your minds by showing you your future in such a way that as to leave no shred of doubt. This is why, having begun by producing phenomena designed to grab your attention by appealing to your senses, we now give you the moral teachings that each of you must spread. That is why we have dictated the Spirit's book. So here he's saying, ask yourself clear and precise questions. So say, what, was that good? No. And be honest with yourselves. And ask those questions all the time. Because think about it. What is a few minutes? Because we're always working so that when we get old, we can retire, right? So what's that few extra minutes so that we can work on that, so that when we get to the spirit world, we don't have to suffer as much, or in our next life, we don't have to suffer as much. So we just put in that little extra effort so that our future can be better. And of course, that future's in a while, so we might not be thinking that far, but we should be. And then they said, and that's why that the spirits are dictated books like this, like the Spirit's book, and they have these amazing phenomena because they want to awaken us and show us that we should be working towards this future and that there's more out there, because a lot of people just sit here and say, oh, okay, all I need to worry about is this job right now that I have. No, we need to be thinking about this long future that we have and working ourselves and bettering ourselves. And then Allan Kardec puts his own comment in, and he says, we commit many faults that go unnoticed. If we followed the advice of St. Augustine and examine our conscience more often, we would see how many times we have failed without even realizing, due to our lack of scrutinizing the nature and reason behind our actions. The interrogative form is more precise than a maximum, and that often is not applied. It requires yes or no responses that leave no room for interpretation. These are personal arguments, and by the sum of the responses, we can estimate the sum of good and evil within us. So again, he's just summing up that we commit faults, we do wrong things that we don't even notice sometimes. So we need to take the time to really critically look at ourselves and really critically judge ourselves and see, okay, what mistakes did I make today? What good things did I do today? And we need to learn off that and improve. So that is officially the end of that moral perfections part, and that's also the end of part 3 of the Spirit's book. And so next week we're going to start off with part 4, which is hope and consolation. So chapter 1 is about earthly joy and sorrows, and chapter 2 is about future joys and sorrows. And then that's when the Spirit's book will end. So that's really crazy how we've been going through this book for so long, and we're so close to the end now. So next week we'll continue off talking about hope and consolations. Before we leave off today, I'd like to read our message from the Daily Book of Positive Quotations by Linda Picone for today's date, September 13th. Consistency. Consistency is the last refuge of the unimaginative. But we've always done it this way. We complain when someone challenges us to make a change. But sometimes it's good to change, even if just for the sake of change. Trying new things help us become more flexible and open-minded. Good traits to have when change is unavoidable. If a particular change doesn't work out, we'll still have learned something that we can use in the future. I am open to change. I will make a small change in my everyday routine just to see how it feels. So it's interesting how that one kind of went right along with the message that we had today in our thing about looking at ourselves and seeing what we need to change in ourselves. If at all you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to talk about at all, even if it's not related to the Spirits book exactly, feel free to email me at cardiacradioforteens@gmail.com and I'll get back to you right away. I'm Bia, and this has been Cardiac Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening. This has been Cardiac Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening.